Dave Mills is back on the Kingdom Over Everything podcast. What is going on, my friend?
Hey, it's so good to be with you and looking forward to this conversation.
It's been about 9 months since you are on the show. That's pretty
Yeah.
significant, actually, because you've birthed something new over the last 9 months. One of the things we were talking
True.
about,
Very true. I,
right?
I
I
didn't
was
think
like,
about
very
that way, but you're
timely,
right.
very
That's right.
timely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said when we had that call, when we had that conversation, I was like, I've got to have you come back so we can talk about the experiment that you were just about to start. And so
Yeah.
before we get into it, how about you share a little bit about yourself? And then we'll talk about Gen Z, and then we'll talk about some of the new things you're experiencing.
Absolutely. So I live in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I've got a lovely wife who I just celebrated 45 years of marriage with,
Congrats.
4 kids and 13 grandkids, which is super exciting. Some of them are in the house right now. There's always some of them in the house.
Yes.
I have been described as a pastor with weird gifts by others. And really what I am is I'm really wired to be a pioneer and a champion. And so I love taking people to new places and I love winning people to the cause. So
Yes.
that's a little bit about me. And I run a commercial growth consulting company to make a living, and I do ministry stuff as a passion. So
I love it. And I want to talk about
yeah,
some of that because in our last chat, we were talking about how Gen Z is a massive demographic in terms of shaping our culture and in terms of the future of the local church. So I'm going to
yeah,
let you riff on that for a second because that'll help us
sure,
contextualize what you've been doing for the
yeah.
last 9 months.
So we had this conversation. We've been working particularly with entrepreneurs for very intensely for a couple of years now, probably 3 now, and we were having a conversation with this local chamber of commerce director in frankly a very rural Virginia county. And so we're sitting there having this talk with her, and she says, "Oh, we have 1,600 micro enterprises in our county." And I did a double take because I would have not even dreamed that there were that many entrepreneurs in that little rural county. You see a lot of cows, you see some farmers and some tractors, some truck dealerships,
Yes.
but you don't see any entrepreneurs. So I came home and I actually looked up in Fredericksburg. We're in a kind of a 4 county hub. In our 4 counties, there's 17,000 micro enterprises. And I was really taken back by that, realizing that, so much of the workforce is now focused on being entrepreneurs. And so where this comes back to Gen Z is that you look at the research and, this group of people, like they really want to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
A very high percentage of them that's in their career, like their career dream sheet, be an entrepreneur, own my own company, or like they're actually doing something about it. And there's, we're bumping up against 50% of the country being gig employed.
Yes.
So there's a movement toward this that's very dramatic. And when you also look at it, you can see that Gen Z looks to entrepreneurial leaders as kind of primary voices. In addition to some media folks, that's who they look to. They trust those leaders like 2 times more
Yeah.
than they trust pastors, which is really challenging.
Right.
So if we want to intersect, Gen Z and actually Gen X and millennials too, if we want to intersect them for the kingdom, we have to think marketplace
Yes.
when we do that. We can't just think traditional ways.
Yes, yes. And so about 9 months ago, you started something called the Founders Table Network. So talk to me about what that is, and then let's talk about some of the things that you've experienced because now you have finished pilot, a pilot phase of that. So we've got some cool outcomes to talk about too.
Yeah. So we decided that, we needed to change the way that entrepreneurs view the church. And we went and talked to a lot of workplace ministry leaders, and they all told us, hey, don't mess around with churches. They're just too hard to work with, right? So, and of course, they didn't know they were speaking to a guy that's planted multiple churches,
Right.
and I actually believe in the local church. I believe in the local gathered body of believers, So anyway, as we prayed about it, we thought, no, that's wrong. We're not doing that. But somehow we have to change this relationship because we heard from entrepreneurs over and over again, like the church doesn't get me. The church doesn't even understand me, And so we heard that repeatedly, and we've even done our own research on it. So what are we going to do? So we started looking around to see what might work, and we stumbled on this concept called the Secret Supper Club, which is a deal where a chef goes out and they hold a one-off dinner that's invitation only in some weird place, like a farm, a field, or a bicycle shop, or a warehouse, whatever. And it's like this intimate one-time thing. If you get an invitation, you show up. So we said, well, what if we took that and we took that and put that in the church? Because entrepreneurs have been to a chicken dinner at the church or a potluck, right? Or spaghetti maybe, or pancakes, something in that list.
Yes.
But they've never been treated special. In fact, most of them have, if they have any success, they end up being treated like a walk-in wallet. And so they don't like that,
Right.
and so it doesn't work for them. And if you talk to entrepreneurs, when they look at their church that they're involved in, like they have one pocket for I'll give this to the church, but to be honest, what the church is doing is not big enough for them to reach in the other pocket. So they look for somewhere else to put that other money because they know the church is not getting it done. So this big disconnect. So we created this thing called the Founders Table Network. And what we've done is we've created a system for holding these really unique dinners, and they're special. They're an experience because they're designed for that entrepreneur to learn something, which is I belong here, and I'm seen, I'm recognized. They see who I am, right? Because the problem is people don't understand kind of the gifts and assets that these entrepreneurs have. So in our pilot, let me finish the story then. Yeah. At the dinner, then we invite those entrepreneurs into an 8-week discipleship program in which they are going to really wrestle with some of the big kind of biblical ideas and heart issues that go with God being in charge of my business and God being intimately involved in my work, all of that stuff. So as we finished the pilot session of this, we were just kind of floored by what happened. We had all kinds of stuff happening. We had businesses having business breakthroughs,
Nice.
Like big stuff.
Yes.
Like major debt being paid off, or major breakthroughs, major contracts being won, which is cool, which we want to see. And we also saw we had people getting baptized.
Love it.
We had people joining ministry teams in church. We had a hunger for what does God have for me.
Yes.
So the outcomes have been kind of bigger than we expected.
Yes.
And a lot more than we expected. So we weren't expecting anything that grand to happen. But I think it just shows us that we're in a moment in which God's doing something.
Yes.
And we just happen to be, jumping in. It's kind of like that part of the, I'm trying to think of the name of the movie. It's the fish movie.
The fish
Nemo, Finding Nemo.
Oh, Finding Nemo.
Right. So there's a moment where Dory jumps into the east. It's some kind of current. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a current, right? And this is where the cool turtles are swimming, right?
Yep.
So that's how it feels like. I don't know the name for the thing, but I know what it feels like.
I'm seeing the scene in the movie right now.
It feels like we jumped into the current.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know it, and we're going, oh wow, this is cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, it's been very exciting to see what has been emerging from that.
I've got questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So you had compared this to the concept of these chef meals that were happening in kind of random places, and then you guys did this in church. So are you saying that this was like a 5-course meal from a top chef that took place inside of a local church building? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you real live invitations, and we had 100% of people who were invited and accepted showed up.
Cool.
So you ever have an event when 100% show up?
Right.
No,
very rare.
So, and so we didn't have the resources to hire a Michelin chef.
Okay.
But we found a good local chef.
Yes.
Who had a special meal, and so and the chef plated it, explained it, served it. So it was really a chef experience, a thing that most people don't probably ever have or very often. Right. And entrepreneurs they really, enjoyed that, spent a lot of time together, and they were seeing other people that they might fellowship with in the future that they didn't even know were Christians, right?
Were these people
And
that
so
were
now
these
they're
all people that go to the same local church primarily, or was this kind of like
it was some people from one local church, and then others who were invited as well.
yes,
So there were some who were brand new to the group, some that were in the church but didn't know each other in terms of being entrepreneurs, right?
yes,
So it was a mixture.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. And then do you engage the leadership at the local church with them there at that event? Like how does partnership with the local church work outside of being inside the building?
Yeah, so we've done it a couple different ways. Sometimes we'll invite a pastor to one of the discipleship groups,
Yeah.
and because part of what's happening here is pastors need to hear the struggles and challenges and questions that
Yeah.
are being asked, right?
Yes.
At the dinner we had, in this particular case, the lead pastor and his wife attended the dinner and spent a lot of time visiting with people. And afterwards they said to us, I think we need to see entrepreneurs a little bit differently.
Yeah.
We need to think about them differently, right? Because the part of the deal is that entrepreneurs come with these gifts and talents that they simply can't put to work in the local church. They don't, they run a company or they run a growing venture and they're being asked to be an usher,
Right.
right? And that's the only option.
Yeah.
Usher, Sunday school teacher, worship leader. What else can you do,
Right.
right? Prayer team leader. So not a lot of outlet for those gifts.
Yeah.
And so they're finding, that they can't engage, and the pastor's going, wow, look at the people and look at the talent in the room.
Yes.
What could we do with the talent in the room? How could we serve this talent, and how could they engage in ways that would help grow the kingdom?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And then you were saying after or at that dinner, then they're invited into that 8-week experience. So you're journeying with them, and then sometimes also with someone who's part of the local church, leadership in the local church that might journey along with these business owners. And then what's your hope at the end of their time together of that 8 weeks?
Well, what we're doing is we have a survey that we're taking that identifies other kind of holistic discipleship needs in that group.
Yes.
And so that's delivered to the pastor to say, look, here's some challenges with marriage. Here's some things with money management. Here's some things with life purpose, whatever those things might be, to allow the pastor to plug them into other things that are available already. And then we also have other curriculum that we have prepared. And so it's really up to that local church. Do they want to do more?
Yes.
In the case of our pilot, we're actually training a number of facilitators who will carry this on.
Nice.
And so this year, by the end of this year, we'll have done this in 10 places. Next year, our plan is to do it in about 100 places.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys have pretty much created a prototype of what this can look like. Of course, you're going to continue to learn new things and shift some things and all of that, but you have something that you can now say, now I can train others on how to do this now, and we can support them as they do that in their local context. Okay. And so that you can tell it's strategy brain. I'm just have all the questions, but how did the economics work behind all of this stuff?
Yeah. So, this is part of the story here about how we jumped into this East Asian current, whatever that thing is. So I'm gonna have to go look it up when we're done. We jumped in this current, with all the cool California turtles who are surfing dude. And we were actively trying to figure out how do we pay for this.
Yeah.
And so some of it we could pay for out of our business, and we didn't really have a solution. And so we bumped into a donor through a networking relationship, and we shared with the donor what we were doing, and he said, "Oh, this is really weird. I was just with my pastor this morning, and he was talking about wanting to do something really similar to this, And so he said, I think you might have something here. And so essentially he said, why don't you not charge anything?
Yeah.
And we'll just fund it.
Yeah.
So where we're positioned right now is we give all of this to the local church. We give them printed materials. We provide training for the facilitator. We even give them a grant for the dinner.
Nice.
So they're able to pay for this. Really, it could be no out of pocket for that church if they want to do it that way.
Yes.
And so that's the goal, is to give it as a gift to the local church.
Yes.
And I believe we're going to be able to sustain that. So I think that's going to be our model, is to make this something that churches can explore and do. And then we also have a digital environment where there's additional curriculum, where entrepreneurs can meet other people in the network so that
Yes.
they can kind of connect across churches,
Yeah.
and the other trainings that we're providing, which local church may not want to provide, but
Yes.
we set the whole thing up to be transferred.
Yeah.
So a local facilitator can run the whole thing without us.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way it's just bringing together. It's got the community focus. You've got the collaborative focus of people being able to meet and create relationships. But all of this is tied to really drawing people to the local church, and for the local church leaders of local churches to have more understanding, right, around this demographic. And so I think
That's
it's
right.
hitting on a lot of different aspects.
That's right.
And then
That's
ultimately, when
right.
you're working with that community, helping them to cultivate an even greater heart and application of kingdom advancement in the marketplace. So it's just like all the
That's right.
goodness wrapped up into one.
Yeah. It's super fun, and our hope, and I think what we're going to see is that we'll probably start with a group of people they're in the seats of the church. They may not be really activated.
Yeah.
Maybe they come once or twice a month. And once we get some of those folks activated, we think we're going to be able to reach a little bit farther out into people that are not directly connected to the church.
Yes.
And so, if you look back in history, it was really people of faith and church leaders who did a lot of the innovation. Like if you think back, the wheelbarrow
Yeah.
it's a major technology invention that changed the way labor was done.
Yes.
Created by a monk. And the same thing with eyeglasses. Eyeglasses were all created by the community of faith. And so you think about wheelbarrows, which is kind of this mechanical advantage, changing labor, and the ability to see.
Yes.
So the church has always been involved in this innovation space, and we've kind of given it up. We've kind of seeded it. And I think, of course, if you were going to be a business person and you went to any kind of university setting, you would have studied theology and you would have studied essentially worship or music.
Right.
And that's part of your preparation,
Yeah.
right? So why would we think we want to have a class of business leaders who have no grounding in kind of God's values and God's ways?
Yes.
Right? I don't think that's what we want. I think we want people that are grounded, connected, and they see themselves as gifted
Yeah.
people that have something to deliver,
Yeah, that's so good. This is like related, but also off topic. So I'll see if you have some thoughts on this. I'm curious about your thoughts on this. I'm curious as it relates to this growing artificial intelligence that we're dealing with. We were talking about how a lot of people in Gen Z, for example, are entrepreneurial. You've got the growing gig economy. You also have, the local church and perhaps some of their perspectives or concerns around the growing of AI and all of those things. What are you either seeing on the ground or discerning in the spirit related to how that even impacts the world of things that you're involving yourself in at these intersections?
Yeah. Well, I happen to be reading a really good book by John Eldredge currently.
Yeah.
Which is Experience Jesus Really.
Yeah.
It's a really good book, but one of his core points is that we are disciples of the internet. We have been trained to live and think based upon how our phones interact with us. And so there's really a problem with this. We have not learned to be quiet. We have not learned to rest. We have not learned to listen for the voice of God.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this is all going. I think that Christians need to learn how to use these tools in ways that are wise.
Yes.
But I also think that every time we adopt a new technology, it replaces something that humans used to do, like think.
Yeah.
Or research, like use Grammarly. You don't have to learn how to spell.
Right.
Right. So what's the trade-off here? What's the replacement? And I think Christians are going to have to learn how to separate themselves and learn disciplines of rest.
Yeah.
And Sabbath, technology Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to draw lines about where we allow, computer technology to supplant human.
Yeah.
Human reality. So like right now, we have software right now that if I put a lead into it, it will go and research the person. It will take my core offering. It will write an email to them that's customized to them, and it will set it off for me.
Yes.
Right. If I want it to.
Yes.
So I'm happy for it to write an email. I'm happy for it to do research, but I realize that without human interaction, a lot of really important things aren't going to happen. Like I don't want the AI preaching the gospel for me. You know what I mean? I don't want. And also, I mean, just if you think about the subtle art of paying attention to people's heart,
Yes.
you know, what's really going on in their lives.
Yes.
So if some of the technology frees us up to pay more attention to that stuff,
Yeah.
that would be good. But I think our habit right now is like we're kind of just going down this road, not realizing how it's reshaping us.
And that's what made me think about that is because of your focus and your heart for even Gen Z. I know also millennials, but when I think about Gen Z and the shaping of the culture for them and how easy it is to do certain things, you're like, on some hand, that creates space for some other things. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
And it also can create an overemphasis on productivity that's not the type of productivity that we actually want to operate in as kingdom
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's got that both of those, but those in Gen Z they are going to be immersed in it in a whole different way than I'm a Gen Xer, right? For your generation, my generation, and even many millennials.
Yeah.
So I
That's
think it's going
right.
to be interesting to see how that plays, even as we get to continue work and operating at that
Yeah.
intersection of essentially discipleship in the marketplace of
Yeah.
kingdom entrepreneurs and what that looks like in the generations that are coming out of college now, just on the other side of college now, in their
Yeah.
20s and that type of thing. It's going to be very interesting.
And we're spending like a lot of time and repeatedly spending time pausing groups and just taking moments to be quiet,
Yes.
to meditate, to experience the scripture, to listen for God's voice. So we're making that a habit.
Good.
And I will say, like, I've learned a lot of that from others on our team.
Yes.
Who probably caught on to it faster than I did.
Yeah.
But I think that rhythm has been very important.
Yes.
And I think we're going to continue investing in that rhythm. And for most people that we do that with, it is actually brand new.
Yes.
They've never been taught how to meditate on scripture, how to pray scripture, how to kind of be quiet, in God's presence.
Yeah.
They've never learned those things.
Yes.
So they have learned maybe some, what I would call quasi-Eastern meditation
Sure.
skills, but
Yes.
we're very careful not to do any of that.
Yes.
We really want to we're anchored in scripture.
Right.
And, right. So I think that's important that we teach that. If we teach that, I think, God's voice should be clearer and louder than whatever Chat GPT is telling us. You know what I mean?
Amen
Hopefully,
to that.
right? Yeah.
I love that. And one other thing on my mind to talk to you about. We talked about this a little bit offline before I hit record, but I was asking you about, you had used this phrase about how you were experimenting, right?
Yeah.
With this
Yeah.
work, you just did your pilot. There's been other things that over since I've known you that you've been experimenting with. And you said something interesting, which I really loved. I think it speaks to the childlike nature of us in the kingdom.
Mm.
When you're talking about just how you feel like you're learning new things, you're open to new things, you're exploring. And I think you described it like being in a playroom with some toys, with some space, and not sure exactly kind of what's happening next. I'd love to know kind of what you're learning and how you're even being stretched personally as you are navigating your business, navigating this work that you're not exactly sure how it's playing out. Like, what are you experiencing yourself?
Well, this conversation really started because we use the Impact, which is a inventory that's rooted actually in Ephesians chapter 4, but it has transferable language in it for people that are in business, right? So I was talking with a coach about my scores, and one of her comments was, I think that you might be a little bit unconsciously competent in this area of aligning, which is really, it lines up with the Ephesians 4 prophetic thing, which is really about helping people connect to God's ways and God's heart.
Yes.
And so I began kind of thinking about that. I was challenged to take some steps and to start listening a little bit harder. And part of it was just living the tension a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because, my pioneering nature is like, my go-to is if I have a challenge, I'll find something to do.
Yes.
I'll take action. Like I can do it in 5 minutes. I'll be acting, right? I don't live in the tension. So living in the tension, I was trying to just be more prayerful. And so what that was causing for me was like this hesitance about, okay, so I want to be responsive to God's Spirit. I want to listen to him, but I also have to get things done.
Yes.
So I was just wrestling with that personally, like, where's the line? And so another mentor just said to me, look, it's like we are in kindergarten and God has put us in this big, safe room and it's completely safe and you can't hurt yourself in it. But it's got lots of toys.
Yes.
And so, you need to go in the freedom knowing that you can play here. And so when I say I'm experimenting, what I mean is I'm in the playground.
Yes.
I don't know how it's going to come out, right? I don't know if the blocks are going to fall over or the Play-Doh is going to be mixed together so it's all one color. I don't know what's going to happen, right? But in the end, it doesn't matter because I know, and by the way, it would be arrogance on my part to think I'd do it right anyway. So... Right. So I might as well trust him and take the steps I believe to be right and knowing that he's going to herd me into the right corner to play with the Legos the way I'm supposed to, know. So that's where I'm at. I'm just learning how to, both listen to him and also to trust him, knowing that I won't get it right the first time.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
I love it.
And it changes the way that you approach things.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I like that.
I love it. I love it. All right. So the last question, what are you most looking forward to in this next phase?
Well, the most rewarding thing for us has been to see these kind of life changes happening in the lives of entrepreneurs. So what I'm looking forward to is just more of those stories about how God is intersecting people. And we're working with entrepreneurs. Some of them, they're doing businesses that, they're a little bit boring to me, right? And I think some of them feel like they're a little stuck. Even though they've started something, they're now carrying it, and God's showing up, or an entrepreneur who had a huge debt that they had incurred in a business and it got paid off. Like, I'm looking forward to God showing up in these places and seeing people come alive and recognize that God has in fact gifted them. The research tells us that most of them believe that already, that God has gifted them and that they should be doing things for his glory, but they don't know how to do it or who can help them, right?
Yes.
So we answer that how and who question, and all of a sudden now things start to happen. So that's what we're in this for, is to see the kingdom outcomes, to see pastors' lights come on in their minds in terms of, wow, look at this group of people and their skills. Because in the end, we can't be in a sedentary church.
Yeah.
We cannot be sedentary, right? Our culture is rapidly changing. We have to be on the move. We have to be, proactive, catalytic. And it takes these catalytic people in the mix to fuel that engine, right? So, so that's what we want to see, is a revived church with ignited, re-engaged and re-enchanted entrepreneurs in it.
I love that. So if someone listened to what you were sharing about with Founders Table Network and they're interested, where do they go? What should they do?
Yeah, they can just go to founderstablenetwork.org, and there's lots of options there. If they're an entrepreneur, if they're a church leader, there's things for them to do. And we're happy to talk with them and see if this is a good fit.
Nice. Well, thanks for hanging out with me again, Dave. I appreciate it. I love what you're doing.
Thanks for the invite. Thanks for inviting me. And by the way, I really appreciated and enjoyed your new book. So I'm hoping that some more are coming.
Yes, there's definitely more coming. And thank you. Right. I appreciate it.